Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tide Sports. I'm Jonathan Mansour.
Hey everyone, I'm Darek Beeman. What's up, Tide Sports fans? I'm Joseph Bianchini.
Hey everybody, I'm Isabella Lyons. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get the ball rolling.
The NBA regular season came to a close this past Sunday, locking in the matchups for the 2026 playoffs. Exciting storylines and series await as the first round is set to tip off on Saturday, April 18th. Out west, the Oklahoma City Thunder enter as the top seed, hoping to become the first repeat champs of the 2020s behind MVP favorite Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama loom as a massive threat, having beat OKC 4 times this season. After finding their rhythm post-All-Star break, the Lakers check in as the 4 seed, but injuries to Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves will leave LeBron James in charge of a short-handed crew for their series against the Rockets. Over in the East, it's been a breakout year for Detroit, who reclaimed the East top spot for the first time in 19 years, thanks to an All-NBA lead from Cade Cunningham. However, it's the Celtics who come in as the East hottest, having won 13 of 16 with superstar forward Jason Tatum since his return in March. With this year's extremely deep field, the quest for the Larry O'Brien Trophy will be the ultimate spectacle. Guys, NBA playoffs, it's that time of year. A lot of new faces in these playoffs, a couple returning ones. Where are your guys' thoughts at? What are some teams you're looking at in particular heading into the 2026 playoffs?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at Denver. They're quite efficient on offense. They boasted 122.1 points per game, and they're shooting nearly 50 from the field and nearly 40% from three. Those are some high numbers. In their matchup, Minnesota has a high, prominent defense, averaging 8.7 steals per game and 5.8 blocks per game. So I'm just wondering here, who's gonna take the lead here? The offense, their efficient offense, or is Minnesota gonna be able to stop their offense?
Yeah, staying on top of that series, Minnesota and Denver, they've had injuries in the regular season a lot. But Denver's case, they are healthy. You have Cam Johnson, Nikola Jokic, Payne Watson, Aaron Gordon, all coming into this series healthy. And then on the Timberwolves side, Anthony Edwards, he's dealing with a knee injury, and he missed 11 out of the last 14 games. So that's going to be crucial to see because if he's healthy, he is a playoff riser, and he can really elevate the Timberwolves to the second round over the Nuggets. And then kind of switching to the East side, Knicks versus Hawks. Can the Knicks use Cat and Brunson efficiently in the pick and roll? We know these two teams have a history in the playoffs just a couple years ago, but Trae Young was in town. Trae Young is gone now. This is a whole different type of Hawks team led by Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson. I'm very curious to see how they match up in New York. And then kind of on a side tangent here, I'm praying that the Hornets can win tomorrow against the Magic and face off against the Pistons in the first round because I think it would be such an exciting series to see because these teams do not like each other. This past regular season, they got into multiple brawls and it would just be so exciting to see. And I actually think they can really beat the Pistons and cause an upset.
Yeah, speaking of Hornets, I was not expecting that Heat game to go into overtime. I feel like the Hornets have really been the dominant team in the second half of the season. I mean, Heat's defense has really dropped off in the back half. Charlotte, you got LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Canepo, and now Kobe White off the bench. LaMelo Ball had that double-double, and it was a really back-and-forth game. You had the Hornets, who had a 10-0 run in the third, and then Miami with the 7-point lead in the fourth. So just multiple lead changes throughout the game, especially right before overtime.
Yeah, and talking in that Eastern Conference specifically, I talked about in the reader, Boston is hot coming in. And if you look at this East side, you touched on the Hawks, you've got the Raptors, you've got a Cavs team that's been in the playoffs the last couple of years, but a lot of young guys. It feels like, to me, there's 3 teams with true playoff experience in the East. You've got Boston, you've got the Knicks, and you've got the 76ers who are playing Boston in the first round. I really think with the momentum the Celtics have coming into these playoffs and the fact that they have so much playoff experience as a team, it's going to bode very well because as we know for NBA teams, that first year in the playoffs with a young roster, a lot of times playing in a 7-game series, it's a different type of basketball, less calls. I think it really makes a big impact and it changes the landscape of the playoffs a lot when there's young teams versus those veteran teams. Now, obviously the NBA playoffs are kicking off, but Jonathan, WNBA offseason is in full swing right now.
Yep, let's jump from the NBA to the W. After a new collective bargaining agreement was recently reached, WNBA free agency kicked off this past Saturday with a couple of league-altering moves being made. Satu Sabaali was one of the first dominoes to fall, as the versatile forward and 3-time All-Star announced her signing with the New York Liberty, turning their big 3 of Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, and Jonquel Jones into a title-contending Big 4. The Chicago Sky were involved in the first blockbuster move of the period on April 6th, when they traded their best player over the last few years and one of the biggest names in the league, Angel Reese, to the Atlanta Dream. The Sky got busy as soon as they got rid of Reese, also signing four-time All-WNBA first-team point guard Skylar Diggins, while also acquiring forwards Azura Stevens and Rakia Jackson from the Sparks, along with guard DeJohnny Carrington. Another move that also happened in the WNBA is Asia Wilson becoming the highest paid WNBA player ever, signing a three-year contract for $5 million. That's a supermax. She returns back to the Las Vegas Aces. And Izzy, I'll come to you. A former teammate of Asia Wilson that was on the Aces, she signed a deal.
Kelsey Plum, yeah. I mean, kudos to her for taking that dollar under $1 million deal as opposed to the 1.4 supermax. This is really going to help improve the Sparks roster, especially creating that salary cap. I did want to touch on the Sky as well. They really have to compensate now for not having Angel Reese. Having stars in Chicago isn't new, but keeping them is. So right now, their potential starting five consists of DeJohnny Harrington, Skylar Diggins, Rakia Jackson, Azura Stevens, and Camila Cardoso. So it really feels like a reset with intent with this team. And speaking of Angel Reese, her going to Atlanta, I really think that made fans wonder, what does this have in store for Brittany Griner and the rest of the team? However, we now know that Brittany Griner just signed that 7-figure deal with Connecticut, who's now relocating to Houston. So it's two new beginnings for two of the biggest names in the WNBA.
Going back to what you said about Angel Reese, I actually like the move for Chicago, right? They already have Camila Cardoso there. I think this helps their spacing a lot. They brought in Rakia Jackson, who I think is a phenomenal player. I think they have a little bit of a logjam of guards, but I think that this team is poised for a really deep playoff run this year. One other team I want to mention, kind of flying under the radar, the Indiana Fever. They were plagued by injuries last year, but they brought back Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Sophie Cunningham. I think they have a core that they can work around for a second year. Obviously, everyone knows about Caitlin Clark, but I really think that this team, with some cohesion going from one season to the next, could be a serious threat in the WNBA this season.
Yeah, and with you guys speaking on Kelsey Plum not taking the Supermax, it seems like in this free agency, a lot of teams are prioritizing efficiency on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. The Valkyries signed Gabby Williams, and she led the NBA in steals per game. So it seems like a lot of these teams are looking to find players who have two-way efficiency on the court.
Yeah, kind of spinning it back to the Los Angeles area since we are in Fullerton. You know, the Sparks, they had a pretty busy offseason. They traded Rakia Jackson for Ariel Atkins, and then they signed franchise legend Nneka Ogwumike back to the team. She left and went to the Seattle Storm for a couple years. She returns, and now you have a front court of Nneka, Cameron Brink, and Dearica Hamby, who re-signed on a 3-year deal. I like what I'm seeing from the Sparks. It does suck to lose Jackson, but Kelsey Plum, like you mentioned, takes that home discount, comes back for 1 year, and she gets to prove herself on this deal. Now, Darek, I'm going to come to you. And moving away from the WNBA in Los Angeles, I hear that Los Angeles and the Diamond had a pretty busy week.
They did indeed. Los Angeles Dodgers swept the New York Mets in the recent series behind dominant pitching and timely hitting. Across the 3 games, Dodgers pitchers allowed just 3 total runs, highlighted by strong outings from Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a career-best outing from Justin Wroblewski, and a 10-strikeout performance from Shohei Ohtani on the mound. The Dodgers got a 3-run homer from Andy Pages in the first game and the go-ahead RBI from Kyle Tucker in the second before 3 different bats went yard in the finale. Meanwhile, the Mets struggled at the plate. On the other side, the Los Angeles Angels had a much different 3-game stretch against the New York Yankees, dropping the series 2-1. In the second game, Mike Trout led a historic power surge alongside Joe Adell and Jorge Soler, as the trio hit 3 consecutive homers in the first inning for the first time since 2023. On the mound, Reed Detmers delivered a strong performance, allowing just 1 run and 4 hits in 7+ innings. The Yankees struggled with pitching consistency and defense, giving up multiple home runs. Yet in the end, they were still able to walk off in the series finale, just like they did to begin the series. Now, the Dodgers are looking as dangerous as ever. Last night, Teoscar Hernandez hit a home run, looking very promising, and the Angels took a very tough loss, as you know. I'm sorry about that. They're just under 500 so far, struggling to score in the first 4 innings, and they find they were mid-game, but ultimately failed in the end. What do you think that the Angels could do to improve their game further throughout the season, and how is anybody going to hold up to the Dodgers here?
Yeah, how the Angels can improve this season. Well, currently they're playing against the Yankees. It was a 4-game set, and they're up 2-1. Promising. But this has been a theme this whole series for the Angels. They've been beating the Yankees the whole time. They've entered the 9th inning with the lead in both of those losses. And they're just losing in the most Angels fashion ever in the Mike Trout era. Mike Trout in the losses, 4 for 9, 3 home runs, 7 RBI. How are we losing when that type of player is putting those type of stats? In game 1, you had Jordan Romano. He just blew the save. Couldn't record it out. They walk off on a wild pitch. Then in game 3, literally yesterday, the stat sheet is going to say a blown save for Romano. But really, it was a miscommunication between Zach Neto and Oswald Peraza on a routine pop-up with 1 out. If you get that out, it's a 2 outs, and then Romano probably gets the saves. Angels slam the door. Good night to the Yankees. Instead, no, it's a loss. Now we're looking to just tie the series. But for the Dodgers, there's no one that's going to stop them. There's literally no one. Their pitching just held the Mets to 5 hits or less in each game, and they combined for 27 putouts as a pitching staff. Just what are you supposed to do? And then you have Ohtani. He extends his on-base streak to 48 games, and the Mets ended one of his streaks as he allowed an earned run to end a 32 2/3 inning scoreless streak. Something that these two teams that have in common that I think the Angels can kind of use to bounce back this season is both teams lead the MLB in home runs. Dodgers sit at 33 and the Angels sit at 29.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Dodgers and Mets, they're coming off a 6-game skid going into this series and only 9 total runs, and that bad streak just followed them into the series. 20 straight scoreless innings, and I think they're really feeling the consequences of not having Juan Soto up at bat. On the other side of things, Dodgers have really set the tone pitching across all 3 games. Yamamoto was able to retire 20 straight batters and open the 8th with 2 quick outs. So Shohei Ohtani, 6 innings, 1 earned run after that, 33 consecutive innings without any, 10 strikeouts. So I think they're doing just what they need to be doing. As far as Angels and Yankees go, of course, I have to mention Aaron Judge. Consistently changing the game throughout the series. He hit 3 home runs. Judge was the most impactful presence, even over Trout, because he has timely production that's able to decide games.
Yeah, Yankees, Angels. Look, I know it was heartbreaking for the Angels, and the way that they lost those games is unacceptable. But this is early season, right? A lot of times, especially MLB, you're playing 162 games. It takes a while to ease into the season. The Angels, right now, you're looking at the AL West, and it is airtight. All 5 teams are within 4 to 5 games of each other. I'm an A's fan. The A's have no business being in first place in the AL West, but they are right now. So I think it's very wide open, and it's very promising for the Angels, considering the bats have been off to a very, very good start this year. One last thing really quick. I know the Dodgers are playing incredible. They have an incredible pitching staff. But the Mets, I don't care if Juan Soto's out. You have the 2nd highest payroll in baseball. You're on an 8-game losing skid. You lose to the Diamondbacks. You get swept by the A's. You get swept by the Dodgers, and they only surpassed 2 runs once over that 8-game stretch. Truly unacceptable. I don't care. I understand Juan Soto is huge for that offense, but you're the 2nd highest payroll in baseball. You got to start putting up runs on the board, and right now they are not.
Yeah, Izzy, you mentioned Aaron Judge. He hit a home run just right now. So, yeah.
Cal State Fullerton softball team dominated UC Riverside in a Big West bout at Anderson Family Field, ultimately walking away with a series sweep. Across all 3 games, the Titans controlled the game early, swinging for power to build leads and keep pressure on Riverside's defense. Fullerton's lineup delivered multiple big innings throughout the series, highlighted by a breakout performance in the finale, where they completed 9 runs in the first inning on 10 hits. The weekend ended with a standout performance in the final game, where Liana Garcia threw a 5-inning no-hitter to seal a victory 15-1. UC Riverside showed early flashes, scoring first in 2 games, but struggled to keep the momentum as Fullerton quickly responded each time. The Titans concluded with 18 hits, their most hits in a single game since March 2015 against UC Santa Barbara. Cal State Fullerton's all-around dominance at the plate and in the circle powered them to a convincing series sweep and outscored UC Riverside 27-2 across all 3 games. Now, yeah, Fullerton was on fire this series, only allowing 2 runs the whole series. Liana Garcia got her first no-hitter of her career. Eva Juardo, 7 shutout innings and a career-high 10 strikeouts for Game 2. We've seen their pitching really improve throughout the season, and I think if they really lean into that, they can make it deep into the playoffs. Now, I do want to talk about the UCSD game the other night. They came in with situational hitting with some sacrifice bunts, aggressive base running, and stringing together some hits. Colby McClinton and Alexia Lopez were really able to drive the offense, both having 3 hits each. And I think this is going to be some good prep going into this Bakersfield series this weekend, and I say they sweep them.
We said Lopez and McClinton. Those were the 2 that really carried the lineup. Not carried the lineup, but were at the heart of the order, delivering for this lineup in that series against UC Riverside. And I think if the heart of the order is continuing to bat the way they are, and the pitching continues to ascend like it has this entire season, I think it's a no-brainer that this team is the Big West favorite right now. Currently, they're in first place. They play Bakersfield, but after that, they play UC Santa Barbara and Long Beach State in 2 of their final 3 series of the year. Those are number 2 and number 3 in the Big West right now. I think we could easily see this Cal State Fullerton team, depending on how this final stretch goes, entering the playoffs with a giant lead over the rest of the competition in the Big West if they continue to play the brand of softball that they have been.
Yeah, and speaking of Colton McClinton, they have Sarah Press. They're all hitting above 400, 3 regulars on their team, and their defense is solid as well. They're holding opponents to a 247 batting average, and their opponents are allowing them to have a 3.38 on average, meaning they're efficient on both sides of the ball. And I feel like that's going to be very good for them coming into the playoff. As you mentioned, I feel like this will be very good for them, yes.
Yeah, just all around a dominant weekend for the Titans softball. Pitching held UCR batters to only 5 hits in 3 games and also combined for 24 strikeouts in the series. McCliskey and Hurtado, they didn't even allow a single walk in their outings. So really suffocating UCR's offense. And then you mentioned Alexia Lopez, 6 for 9, 3 RBI weekend. And then as a whole offense, they've had now double-digit hits in 3 straight games. The final 2 games versus UCR, and then Izzy, you mentioned it, on Tuesday versus San Diego and their 10-3 win, they had 12 hits. You also highlighted the Titans. They have a 3-game lead right now for first place in the Big West Conference. You just have to applaud head coach Gina Oaks Garcia. Ever since she came into this franchise, into this program, she has really changed them around. And she got pitching and hitting, timely hitting too. And if not relying on the long ball as well, something that also happened last year and has continued so far this year.
Yeah.
Coming up after the break, Joseph will do his best Mel Kiper impression for the upcoming NFL draft, except he actually knows what he's talking about. Stay tuned.
All right, I have a question about.
Welcome back to Titan Sports. The NFL draft is here, and because of that, I want to break down some of the film of my favorite prospects. I'm not talking Fernando Mendoza or Jeremiah Love. I'm talking some guys early to mid to late first round, my personal draft crushes, if you will. So without further ado, let's get into it, and let's start on the offensive side of the ball, shall we? Omar Cooper Jr. This guy reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel. Yards after catch monster. He's super, super physical, and you're going to see the hands on display. This guy is a mini Deebo, not quite as stocky as Deebo Samuel is, but exactly that. You're going to see he primarily works out of the slot. Here he is shaking against Illinois, but he breaks 1, 2, 3. Oh, he's staying on his feet. 4, 5. It takes the entire Illinois defense to bring this guy down. He's physical. He's a nightmare to tackle after the catch. You see this on his film throughout. Very next play, bubble screen. Yeah, take this, stiff arm, get to the pylon. That's 6. That's what Omar Cooper is capable of. He's an absolute menace after the catch. He breaks tackles, and he's got the athletic traits to be able to get down the field. Here he is working out of the slot again. And are you kidding me? One-handed catch going back like that? This is what this guy is capable of, primarily out of the slot. And of course, he breaks 2 more tackles to get the first down, because that's what Omar Cooper Jr. does for Indiana. But the catch of the season, are you kidding me? The fact that he got 1, maybe even 2 feet down against Penn State, undefeated season on the line, game on the line, no time left. Fernando Mendoza gets hit, not an incredible throw by any means, but look at how is he? That's almost 2 feet in. That's almost an NFL catch with the referee in his face. Unbelievable. Omar Cooper, one of my favorite wide receiver prospects in the draft. Freak athlete, Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. This guy ran a 4.39 at the combine. He's an A+ seam route runner. I love this guy down the seam, and you're going to see the circus catches on display. Everything about Kenyon Sadiq is the athleticism, though. Here he is working out of the slot, seam route against Northwestern. That's too easy. NFL offense coordinators want this guy because he's going to unlock offenses against 1 high safeties. You have to run 2 high safeties against a team with Kenyon Sadiq. Look at Little Shinny I'm gone. That's what Kenyon Sadiq is capable of out of the slot. He uses his athletic traits to separate. That's why I love him so much. He's my tight end 1 in this draft class. Here he's working out of the slot again. It's too easy. You can't run outside leverage against this guy because he's just going to run right past you. USC didn't stand a chance on this play. They've got a safety and man coverage. It doesn't matter. This is a 6'3" tight end. I'm gone, right? Kenyon Sadiq is that dude. Kenyon Sadiq is like that. Now this. Are you kidding me? Circus catch to be able to distort your body. This is arguably as good as Omar Cooper's one-handed catch. That's not a great throw by Dante Moore, but Kenyon Sadiq is capable of getting 2 feet in like that. That's an NFL catch, not a college catch, folks. That's what Kenyon Sadiq is capable of. And of course, I talked about the 40-yard dash, but how about the vertical jump? That's a tight end doing that. A tight end, not a wide receiver, not a running back, a tight end doing that. This dude is a freak athlete. Reminds me a ton of Vernon Davis back in the day. Another freak athlete on the defensive side of the ball. Sonny Styles, awesome instincts. You're going to see the closing speed, and he is a ferocious tackler. Also, giant for a linebacker. Big comparison. Reminds me a lot of Fred Warner, and you're going to see it. He's an off-ball linebacker, but here he is an outside linebacker. This is 2 seasons ago. Caleb Johnson, NFL running back in the backfield. It doesn't matter. He beats the tight end on the block. He sees the play. He reads. He reacts. He does it. Watch. Right when the ball is snapped, you're going to see him go. The tight end doesn't have a chance at blocking him. That's the vision, and he goes. He shot out of game. Here he is against Miami in the college football playoff. Malachi Toney, one of the best playmakers in college football. On a jet sweep, he sees it, he shoots, doesn't stand a chance. That's what Sonny Styles is capable of. That's why it reminds me so much of like a bigger, stockier Fred Warner, if you will. Safety background, you see the athleticism. Here he is, outside linebacker. Looks like he's covering again. Nope, he's getting sent on blitz. Carson Beck stepped up in time, but it doesn't matter. That's the closing speed that I'm talking about with this guy. It's unreal. But my favorite play of the season, Sonny Styles, a middle linebacker. Watch him. He's not involved in the play at first. And then boom, the ball carrier gets to the outside. Sonny Styles is not letting you in the end zone. This dude has a high motor. He is such a ferocious tackler, and you see this in the film time and time again. The fact that the quarterback didn't get in here is remarkable. That's what Sonny Styles is capable of. But my favorite prospect in the draft is actually Sonny Styles' teammate, Ohio State safety, Caleb Downs. This guy is versatile. He's got a very high football IQ, and he is a punishing tackler. Not crazy fast, not crazy big, but he makes up for it with everything else, and especially with his versatility. You'll see throughout this film, he lines up everywhere. Here he's at the line of scrimmage. That's a safety QB sign, not a linebacker. A safety sees the hole. Akron quarterback gets sacked. 4th down, get your offense the ball back. Caleb Downs can play anywhere, make plays anywhere. That's what he's so good at. Here he is, college football playoff 2 years ago. Guess who picks off Quinn Ewers for a spot at the national championship to ice the game? That's Caleb Downs, folks. But you're going to see on this play. This is the football IQ I'm talking about. He's at the top of your screen. Folks, he's not even looking at the quarterback. He's looking at the receivers. He sees the route combination. He sees 2 breaking routes. Yeah, I'm going to jump on that. Give me that. Game over. We're going to the Natty. And, of course, Ohio State would go on to win the Natty. But my favorite thing about Caleb Downs, this guy can pop. This guy will hit you like a expletive. Watch him from the top of the screen. Purdue wide receiver, he doesn't even stand a chance. And then poor Malachi Toney. Miami won this game, but Malachi Toney had a rough game. That dude had to hit the ISAF after this one because look at that pop, too. That's what Caleb Downs is capable of. He's my personal favorite prospect in the draft. Guys, I could talk about the draft for hours and hours. I got more prospects, but those are 4 of my favorites. Omar Cooper, Kenyon Sadiq, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and I'll give it back to you guys.
Great job, Joseph. That was way better than what Mel Kiper would ever do. I'll tell you that much. But a couple names that you mentioned, Caleb Downs and Kenyon Sadiq. I love these 2 prospects a lot. And just in my standpoint, I think Caleb Downs is a glue, a perfect fit for the Bengals because they need a leader on the defense. They lost Trey Hendrickson. They need someone that's going to fill in that secondary, and Downs, he can play all over the field, kind of like a Derwin James-esque type of safety, don't you mind you? And then Kenyon Sadiq, he's a monster on offense. You mentioned the Vernon Davis comp, and I can't just think about him in a Mike McDaniel offense with Jim Harbaugh, who was the coach for Vernon Davis. That would be scary. It's something that I would love to see. I just don't think he'll fall to 22, unfortunately. And then kind of names to look out for in the draft. Jeremiah Love, best running back in the class by far. I kind of like him going to the Commanders. I think him and Jaden Daniels in the backfield would be very intriguing. And then Reuben Bain Jr., dominant edge, kind of facing some legal trouble right now. And we just don't know where he's going to slide, but I think his talent is too good to be passing up on. And then Vega Ioane, best interior offensive lineman, kind of rumored to go to the Ravens at 14. Makes sense since they lost Tyler Linderbaum. And then finally, Jordan Tyson, who I think could really be the best wide receiver. There's just one problem is he has a lot of soft tissue injury, and it's going to cause him to slide. I'm very intrigued to see if a team in the first round will take a swing on him, or if he'll fall to the second round where he would become the biggest steal.
Yeah, following what you're talking about on Sadiq, I feel like for his size as a tight end, along with his speed, coaches are really going to love him, especially even in the run game as a blocker. I feel like he'll be really efficient in helping teams out with the run game, and talking about Caleb Downs as well. IQ and being able to hit is a trait that we're not common seeing in the league, I feel like. I feel like bringing that into the league would be a thing that a lot of defensive coaches would look out for. And speaking on Jeremiah Love, yes, he's one of the top running backs in the league, but we still need to be careful for, as the running back position, I feel, is still how do I explain that? It's losing value every single year, I feel like. And so I feel like he could still slip somewhere down in the draft.
Yeah, going back to Kenyon Sadiq, I'm not going to lie, that USC clip did kind of hurt me over there, but he was so exciting to watch at the Combine this year. He jumped over 43 inches in this vertical, and I honestly like to see him go to the Chiefs. Travis Kelce's on his way out, so he's going to be able to be mentored by one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Last year, Oregon, 51 catches, 560 yards, 8 touchdowns. The Chiefs should ideally be taking a corner, an edge rusher, or some type of receiver with their first 2 picks. So why not get Kenyon Sadiq? You get a different type of body out there. You already have Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. But going over to the defense side, you obviously have to talk about Caleb Downs in this draft. This is a very defensive-heavy draft, and he started for Nick Saban as a freshman. Who does that? He's able to make big plays in big moments. He's able to disrupt any play near the line of scrimmage because he doesn't hesitate to step up and run support. He's a force to be reckoned with in the rush and in the run and pass game. He has a high football IQ, and I also would like to see him at Cincinnati.
All right, that about wraps everything up. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on Instagram and X at TitanTVCSUF and on TikTok at TitanTV_CSUF. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of
Titan Sports!